That's what their sites. They have their sites on podcast. I've never been there. We go back and visit. It looked a little bit like when they were there for signatures, but you're like, let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be beginning services. If everyone please kindly take seats. And please maintain that social distance in the seats that you were asked to please sit in. Thank you.
Start the service with my father-in-law, Michael Bennett Fein, Michael Baruch Ben Yecheskel Bear. We will start with Tir Kriya. Start with you, Mama. So we're going to say Baruch Atah. Everyone, you all. My mother-in-law has rights. You're left. You know, but Lori, Danny, and Ali. Baruch, repeat after me, please. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hadayan emes. Blessed is thou our God, who is the rightful judge.
As we begin our service, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you. We will begin the service by saying a few of the Psalms. We will start with Psalm number 23. I'm going to call up Rabbi Mendy Mengel, the rabbi of the Chabad in Cherry Hill, to please say the first fifth of the day.
Mizmar David, Adonai Doyle Yafsa, B'nai Sashi Abitzaini Amay Menuchat Yina Aleini, Nafshi Yishevu Yankein B'madu Tzedek L'man Shemoi, Gam Ki Elef B'geit HaMavetz, Lo Yirah, Ki Modi, Shiftecho Mashantecha Hemi Nachamuni, Tarech L'fon HaShulchan De'Getzedrei, Yishantik Shem Reishi Kaisi Revai, Aftei B'chasi B'dipuri Kol Mechayei, B'shafti B'beis Adonai, Li'erech Yamin.
Call up my rabbi, Rabbi Aaron Cement, rabbi of Congregation Arzei Yaron in Teaneck.
Tichtov LeDavid Shamrini El Ki Chasisi Bach Amart Adonai Adonai Ata Tovasi Bal Alecha Lekdoshim Asher Ba'aretz Ema Va'adirei Kol Chefsi Ba Yirbu At Sosam Acher Maharu Bal Asich Niskehem Midam Uval Esa Eshmasam Al Swasai Adonai Minas Kelki Bekosi Ata Tomich Gorali Chavalim Naflu Liban Imim Af Nahalas Shabra Alai Avarech Es Adonai Asher Ya'atzani Af Lelos Yisruni Kil Yosai Shivisi Adonai L'Negisami Ki Mimini Balemot L'chein Samach Libi V'Yagil Kvodi Af Bisari Yishkon Lovetach Kilo Sa'azov Nafshi Lishol Lo Sitein Chasidcha Lir'os Shachas Todiini Orachayim Sovas Machos Es Panecha Nimos Bimcha Netzach.
I will say the third kapitel of Tehillim. Happy is the one who has not followed the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the path of sinners, nor stood in the company of the scornful. Rather, that one's delight is in the Torah of the Lord, meditating in God's Torah day and night, and will be like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in season, whose leaf will not wither, and whatever that one does prospers. Not so the wicked, who are like chaff in the wind that drives away. Therefore the wicked shall not survive judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord loves the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked is doomed. We will now hear some words, first from me, and then we will call up some of the family members to talk about my father-in-law. My friends, this past week, the Jewish people mourn Torah giants. Rav David Feinstein, Rabbi Lord Sachs, and I am grieving for my own role model, my father-in-law, Michael Fein. I think it's no coincidence that these passings occurred on the week we are to read the portion of Chayei Sarah. The Torah begins with the death of Sarah, states, Vayu Chayei Sarah, Mea Shana, Ve'esrim Shana, Ve'sheva Shanim, Shnei Chayei Sarah. And the life of Sarah was 100 years, and 20 years, and 7 years. These were the years of the life of Sarah. The rabbis comment on the strange wording of the verse. Why does it mention the word years over and over? Why not just say that Sarah died when she was 127 years old? Rav Yosef Dov Soloveitchik, the Rav, one of the foremost Torah giants of the 20th century, explains that the wording was very specific. He notes that every person passes through different stages in their life. Earliest youth is a time of innocence and curiosity. We discover ourselves in our world. When we become adolescents, different priorities begin to take hold. We prize our independence. Who am I? A bit later in life, still different goals begin to emerge. I'd like to settle down and start a family. What should I do about a career? I'm raising kids. How do I instruct them? Each new phase in life comes with new priorities, new ways of looking at the world. What Rav Soloveitchik explains is that although we pass through these different stages, some of us traverse these stages in an ordinary way, while others do so in an extraordinary way. Most of us go through the stages of life by experiencing them without any lasting meaning or effect on ourselves or others. We live each stage for what it is, and then leave it behind and experience the next one. That is the ordinary way to go through life. But there is another way to go through life, an extraordinary way. It is what Sarah did. You don't passively travel through life stages, discarding the past for more personal, pressing priorities of the present. No, you build as you go on. Take each stage, each lesson with you as you encounter the next one. This is how my father-in-law lived his life. his extraordinary life. He took what he learned from each stage of his life and he built on it. Michael Fein grew up as the only child of Bernice and Barney Fein. And although he was their only biological child, he learned about the importance of taking care of family. Nana, his mother, took in and raised many of her nieces and nephews, Michael's cousins, when her siblings took sick and passed on. And as Michael grew and finished college, he went on to the next stage of his life. He wanted to have a career and find a wife, but he knew he needed someone special who shared his beliefs in family. He could not have found a more perfect match than my mother-in-law, Dee Dee Fein. Well, the two of them had different opinions on many topics. The one area that they both agreed was on creating the best family there is. Michael started his career in the patent office in Washington, D.C., could have joined any firm he wanted. However, remembering the lessons on family from his youth, he wanted a job that would allow him to spend time with his family. When I joined the family 26 years ago, he was working at Romanaz. I remember him telling me how much he liked his job. Not because it paid the most money, but because he was able to be there for his kids whenever they had a play, event, or game at school. He was able to take family trips and go on vacations with his family, with his children. I knew immediately that this was a smart man and I could learn a lot from him. Not only because he was good at his job, he would get 2 to 3 times the amount of patents that anyone else in his department would get, but because he understood what was important, taking care of family. Of course, part of taking care of family was trying to fix up his daughters. First time I met my future father and my future in-laws, I'd been dating Allie for about 5 weeks. I called her to ask her for another date, but she told me she'd love to go out, but she was having dinner in the city with her parents, her sister Lori, and her brother Danny. But she would love if I could come if I wasn't too intimidated. Of course, that was a challenge. I didn't know why I should be intimidated. I usually got along well with parents. At that time, I was a good boy. I was a rabbi. I was a CPA. I was in law school. Generally, not items that parents were upset about. So we met and we came for dinner. We had a lovely dinner, but as most of you could expect, when dinner was over, the night was not over. My future in-laws said we should go out for a drink or for coffee and keep the night going and have a good time. So we each had our own cars. We were on the east side, so they said we're going to meet up on 79th Street and Amsterdam Avenue. Lori came with Allie and me, and while we were waiting at the corner, some other young people came to use the ATM. One boy came over as his friends were waiting for the ATM and started to try to pick up Allie. I said, "Excuse me, she's with me." Of course, there was another pretty girl, so he says, "Fine." So he started talking to Lori, and he wanted to keep chatting her. While he was talking to her, my in-laws come over, and he says, "Oh," they said, "Hi, we're her parents." And they said, "Oh, your daughter is so nice. I'd love to go on a date with her." And my mother-in-law says, "Oh, that would be great, except my daughter only dates Jewish boys." At which point he proceeds to put his hand in his pocket and he pulls out a yarmulke. Then he says, "I am Jewish, so can I please have her number?" So my father-in-law says, "Sure," and gives him a phone number. After he leaves, after the other people left and we started on our way, I said, "That's really smart. Give him a fake number so he goes away." And my father looked at me and he says, "No, I gave him her real number." Luckily for us, that didn't work out and we had Marty in the family. But that was the first time I got to meet my father-in-law. Mike was also one of these people who took Parent Day to the extreme. I knew that he went to visit every elementary school, high school, and colleges, but when he showed up for human anatomy at Alley Dental School, I think he was taking that to a different level. But I don't want anyone to think that for a moment that for family, for my father-in-law, it only meant spending time with his children and eventually grandchildren. Although that was obviously what he loved to do. What impressed me the most was the way he took care of his in-laws, of Mama and Papa. When I joined the family, Papa had already injured his spine, and he and Mama were living at home with my in-laws. That alone told me something about my father-in-law. How many people would want to take in their in-laws to their house, especially when they were sick and they needed a lot of attention and a lot of cost? Don't worry, Mama. Allie and I have already decided, if you ever decide to leave Cherry Hill, you're coming to live with us, so it's all good. But really, about my father-in-law, he didn't just take care of them. He transformed the family room into a bedroom for Papa. He fixed up upstairs for Mama. Expenses which were tight at the time, there was a lot of money spent on health, doctors, and whatever else they needed. And then he took them out to eat, and he took them out to the shore, wherever to have a good time. And while that might just seem okay, you take them out to eat, that's nice, we go out to eat all the time. Try lifting and transporting a quadriplegic person in and out of a sedan, and you'll understand how much he wanted them to go out and enjoy themselves. And the scene that resonated with me the most, we had a family trip up to the Catskills in the wintertime. And after dinner, as they had in the Catskills, there was a comedian. Of course, the comedian ruined us for life. He sang, "I love peanuts, peanuts." He sang the song. He said, "You'll never forget it." It's 25 years later, can't get the song out of my mind. But Mama and Papa wanted to go, and it was kind of cold to go outside. It was the winter up in the mountains. So my father-in-law and I took up Papa up in the wheelchair, up and down 3 flights of stairs, so that we could get him to the comedian, so he could enjoy himself for the evening. I knew immediately that this was a very special person. And luckily for me and for us, the love for the family caused him and Mama to start renting the shore houses. 20 years ago, my in-laws wanted to ensure that their legacy, their love of their family, and the love that we share exists forever. Even though the cost was significant, and again, they argued on many things, this was one of the things they did not argue on. They rented a house so all the children and grandchildren could be together. Year in, year out, the summers continued, started with 2 weeks, blossomed to 4 months. All the family together under one roof, laughing and playing together. Nothing says love like 10 kids sleeping in 3 bags lying all over each other. Today we're able to continue that tradition in Julie and Dan's home, but the lesson, the love, the joy is there because 2 people cared enough to make sure that we wanted to be together. And I can't talk about the shore without mentioning that my father-in-law taught all the children and me, which I guess is part of the children, how to ride bikes. That was another favorite pastime. You bike yourself at a play game, he gave you money to play games, win prizes, and then on the way home stop and get some lemonade. But I think the most amazing feature for my father-in-law was his good nature. Even though not everything was easy or perfect, he never complained. Even when 7 years ago, the most horrific event possible happened to him, his son Rick died, he did not complain. Was he sad? Of course. Did it hurt? Definitely. But my father-in-law was the kind of person who focused on the positive. He had a wife who he loved. He had 3 wonderful children, and he had all of his 14 wonderful grandchildren. He chose to focus on what was good in his life instead of what hurt him. He spent more time going down to visit schools or to his grandson Noah playing football. Nothing made him happier than going down and watching Noah, All-Star, All-Pro, and won awards, watching him and getting Shepard Nafis for just his hard work and his dedication. And he took these lessons with him later in life when he got sick. He had 3 types of cancer but never complained. I was with him last week in the hospital. Allie and I were with him last week in the hospital. And he was weak. He couldn't move his legs. And when the doctor came to ask him what pain level he was on, he says, 2. 2! I would have said 20. The scale was 1 to 10. But that's not who my father-in-law was. On Sunday, a beautiful day, where it was the last day we spent together, We wanted to bring him outside to the deck to listen to some jazz music. We listened to some comedian Ali was playing. But we had to move him into the wheelchair to take him outside. And when I had to move his legs, even though he grunted in pain, he didn't complain. He would just keep it inside. And that brings us why we're here today. But he taught us the lesson that we needed to know. Be happy, love, and care for each other. That was his legacy, and that was the lesson of his extraordinary life. And now that he gave us these instructions, he wanted to go back and join his other son, Rick, who we missed in silence for these last 7 years. My only wish is that we learn from him, that they did not throw Srura B'Sorachayim, and may his soul be intertwined with the souls of the living. And as long as we keep his memory alive, and we live our lives by living the lessons that he taught, he will always be with us. Before I end, I just wanted to give a Karas Tov, gratitude to my amazing mother-in-law, to my brothers and sisters-in-law, for the incredible love, treatment, devotion that they gave to him. They made his life special, no matter what. And of course, a special shout out to Natalie Alt for all the love and care that you gave him. Couldn't have gone through this last year without you. So we'll always be grateful for that. And then when we merit the coming of Mashiach, the time when our loved ones come back to us, B'mehera b'yameinu. Amen. We will now hear from the family. I'm going to call up my wife, Ali. And our children to come up also, please.
Thank everyone for coming and whoever's watching online. I believe my dad saw his role as someone who would teach his kids and grandkids skills so that we could take off and thrive. He wanted us to be fearless and independent. When he was young, whatever skill my dad learned became a paid job. When he learned to walk, he got a paper route. When he learned to count, he got to use the register in his grandfather's store. When he learned to ride a bike, he used it to sell popsicles. And when he learned to drive, he got an Atlantic City bus driver gig. So he saw any skill as a practical skill. He's now famous for taking the time to teach all of the grandchildren to ride bicycles. But it goes much farther back than that. Even when the kids were babies, when I left my kids with Saba, I never know what they would learn. One time, my little escape artist, Shoshana, wanted to learn how to get out of the pack and play. And Saba proudly taught her to push the pillows up and push the toys up and swing your leg around. And he got in trouble, and he tried to deny it, but he thought it was so cute that he took a video. So we have proof. When we were growing up, my dad always went to every school event and activity, and he was truly interested in whatever we were doing and learning. When Lori and I decided to become Orthodox, he wanted to have so many discussions. He challenged us to think. He learned more Torah himself in classes and became close with some fantastic rabbis. Although he never figured out how you could possibly cook a chicken in its mother's milk, he and my mom came to love both their favorite Chabads in Ventnor and Cherry Hill, and our own Arzei Jerome. As he graduated to grandparent, he went to the school plays, concerts, art shows, volleyball, football, basketball, and hockey games. He was amazed at the talents of his grandchildren. I think he was especially thrilled to have anyone with any athletic ability in the family. He and my mom taught us an appreciation for art and music, and took all of us to Broadway shows and classical music concerts. We took so many trips, broadened our view of the world, and he and my mom have been all over. He was blessed to have a wife for 56 years who was so dedicated to him and took such amazing care of him, spending every minute trying to make his life better and longer. Something unique about my parents and their wonderful friends is those crazy themed parties. The Camden party, the Poor Taste party, the Speckel party. I said, how do they come up with these creative ideas? What I finally realized is that they were all one party. The theme is, I don't have to clean up the house. It's supposed to look like this. They really went all out to have an immersive experience. One time, my father drove my car onto the lawn as part of the Camden theme. It was painted a rust color, or maybe it was authentic rust, with a splash of turquoise hood. Somehow he lost the key to this gem during the party, and it was on the lawn for a week. Even the entertainment made you develop new talents. If you want to come as a guest, you have to write songs and perform them. My parents have such fantastic friendships. Even in the past few months when he was so sick, he was able to relive them and enjoy when we watched the videos. His life was so blessed. He had so much love, so much laughter, and so many adventures and experiences. So many people prayed for him. He was so curious about everything, and now he will get the answer to the big question, what happens next? And to be with the souls of the other people he loves. His son Rick, his cousin Sandy, his parents Nana and Papa Barney, and my grandparents Mama and Papa Mo. May his memory be a blessing for all of us. I love you, Dad.
We'll now call up son.
I didn't have anything prepared, sorry. But I did want to say that my grandfather was someone who always tried to push me to do better and to be better than who I was. And a good example is, honestly, last week, I was on the phone with him, we were on FaceTime, we were talking, and he asked me how my week was, and I'm in college, so I told him it's mainly classes now, and he was always like curious, okay, what are you learning in classes? So what are you doing next? So how are you doing with this? And he just wanted me to learn as much as I possibly could and to be the best person that I possibly could. And I'm gonna miss him.
We will now call up his son Danny and Julie, his daughter Julie, and their family.
Jack's kind of shy. It's November 11th, 11/11. We started at 11 a.m. Mike absolutely loved dates and times with cool number patterns. I no doubt would have texted him today to point it out, and it would have thrilled him. A perfect date to celebrate this incredible person. The first time I met Mike 19 years ago, I met a Mike none of you would have recognized. Seriously, he was quiet, serious, stoic. I don't think he said one word throughout dinner. I remember thinking it was odd amongst the rest of the very boisterous Fein clan. It turned out that his son had threatened him so much about messing things up with his girlfriend, he was too nervous to say anything at all. But Dan needn't have worried. Soon I met the real Mike. Warm, loving, attentive, fun, and it was impossible not to love him. I have always felt that we shared a very special and unique relationship. But recently, as I've thought about it, I think everyone he's met probably feels that way. Mike just had that way of making you feel so special and valuable to him. Always interested in every word you had to say, he made time to really get to know people for who they are. No pretending, no judgments, though he did love a good debate. Just sincere interest and love. And of course, always a unique nickname that he insisted on using. I may have given him a hard time. J-Co does not sound like J-Lo. And Lady Lila is not the same as Lady Gaga. But in reality, I love them all. Nowhere were his incredible relationships more evident than with his grandchildren. A champion of all their accomplishments, no matter how small, my kids were loved immensely and unconditionally by their Saba. And he would do anything, literally anything, for them. Mike, I hope you are watching us from a sunny beach. Maybe you're under a pier, a tuna sub in your hand, your bike waiting on the nearby boardwalk. We were all blessed to have you in our lives. My children have been lucky beyond measure to have a 1 in a million Saba, and I to have a 1 in a million father-in-law. Jacob will miss you so much.
Hi, I'm Lila Fein, and I'm grandchild number 13 out of 14. Saba taught me how to ride my bike, and he would always ride down to play Kate on the boardwalk with me. He was super smart, intelligent, and very easygoing. He would never complain about anything, and he was very respectful. I'm very lucky that I had him as a grandpa. He was the best grandpa, better than I could ever ask for.
I want to thank everyone for coming today in person as well as online. As you know, I'm Dan, the youngest of Dad's 4 kids. I think he would have loved that he could finally stream something on YouTube without us all nagging him that has to be password protected. While we knew Dad's health was declining for some time, we still were really able to have a lot of great memories in these last few years. Last week, he was in the hospital, and last week he got out, and actually the next day was well enough to get in the car, and we went to Iron Hill Brewery and even Friendly's, not less than a week ago at Voorhees Town Center. And, he really, I think, enjoyed every minute. Mom was summoning tablecloths from inside the restaurant to keep us all warm. And it was something that he still enjoyed. And, it kind of hit me last night when we were all in Cherry Hill at the house, and my kids wanted Chinese food. So call Shangri-La, and Shangri-La was closed on Tuesdays. Whoever heard of a restaurant closed on Tuesdays? So call Alana Wu, and I live in North Jersey. I'm not really up to all the changes in Cherry Hill, so I go to where the Ritz used to be, where Alana Wu used to be. And it's not there, so I look up online, and where is it? It's at Voorhees Town Center, right next to Iron Hill and Friendly's. And he just wanted to give us a reminder, that he's still here, and he's very much still with us. I think it's also fitting that today is a 65-degree day in the middle of November, because, to Dad, that would definitely be a beach day. And he would, wake up before anyone, and he would schlep the first cart full of chairs and buckets and towels and sodas and every toy you can imagine to the beach. And then instead of sitting down, he would turn around and he would schlep the next cart to the beach. And then the next, we're like 25 people. So it's something where, we would wake up, he'd have the spot on the beach, say, let's go, let's get to the beach. And, my fondest memories are of him, sitting in his Tommy Bahama chair, trying to struggle with a, Philly Inquirer in the wind. And he'd get about 5 minutes in before, one of my kids or one of the other grandkids would say, let's go on the water, Saba, let's go jump waves. Because he was the one they all wanted to be with. And, without any regard to the temperature of the water, he would go in and just create these amazing memories. As you all know, he was extremely generous with his time, and whether that was driving me around to every single baseball card show in the tri-state area, or later in life, giving a full 15 to 20 minutes to every spam caller that would want to change his Medicare Advantage plan. No problem. He was always there, willing to give the time, and he also, that entrepreneurial spirit. I think it was ahead of his time with the entrepreneurial spirit when he sourced, a container load of rubber gloves from China a mere 30 years before the COVID pandemic made the value skyrocket. I think many of you remember that long before the cell phone camera, he was the unofficial camcorder videographer of every Cherry Hill bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, wedding. Whether or not he was an invited guest, that didn't matter. He would still be there. Before the weekend was over, we would have, a memory before the real one came back, of dubbed down. There were no voices; it was all dubbed to Fiddler on the Roof. It was stamped with his Fein productions, and it's interesting that people joke because I find myself doing the same exact thing with our friends, where someone wants a memory or pictures of a weekend out or something like that, and they turn to me. I guess it's ingrained, but we spoke on the phone practically every day, and he was having insatiable interest for the minutia of daily life, whether it was work or the kids or Julie. He just really wanted to know everything, and I think he was always trying to find a way in to help with something. Whether you thought you wanted that help or not, he would really try to find something. It was always so valuable. I think the example of taking in Mama and Papa, my mom's parents, for so many years in our house, and I was home at the time. I was in high school, and elementary school and then high school, and to really see how he cared for them and how people say he treated them like his own parents, but I don't know if people treat their own parents that well. He really was amazing, and that's such an amazing lesson. I think when people think of my dad, they just think of devotion to family above all else, and really just wanting to help people and just finding a way to do that. He would have considered himself a very lucky guy, and he was. To see 4 kids get married and have 14 grandkids, and to be able to witness that and share in that joy was something where he was very lucky. I echo Mo's statement where, his for the last 2.5 years, the doctors quickly learned that they had to grade his pain scale on a curve, because he was not someone that would complain really about anything to his last day. I know he's finally at peace. His favorite song in recent years was "Spirit in the Sky," and it's true. When I die and they leave me to rest, I'm gonna go to the place that's the best. So, I know you're at peace. You're with Mom and Pop-Up, and now and then Pop-Up Barney and Rick, and many, many others. And he's finally at peace. Yes.
We now call up daughter Lori, Marty, son, and family.
The kids have a few things that they wanted to say. Adiel had written very recently, had an assignment of writing about someone who's a hero to you, and she chose to write about her Saba. She and Miriam are going to read that. And Margalit and Aviva are very fortunately in Israel, but unfortunately for the moment, we're not able to come back because of COVID. They really are so upset that they're not able to be here today. And Margalit sent a little memory of Saba that Ronnie's going to read, and then Marty and I will say a few words.
Okay, so Margalit wrote, oh God. My Saba was an excellent grandfather. He taught me a lot of things, some things directly, like riding a bike. But when I was living with him and my bubby one summer, he indirectly taught me an invaluable lesson. I remember this summer for many reasons, for many happy reasons, but I think the greatest lesson I learned from it was when one morning I was tired of working and frustrated on my job and just wanted to stay in, but my bubby insisted I go. I told her I was too tired and that I just wanted a day off. She said, "Do you think that your Saba wants to go to work every day early? No. But he does every day go to work on time because he made a commitment to his company and to our family." Now this was a mega guilt trip. I was 15 and working as a swim instructor for 6-year-olds at a day camp. The limited amount of money I was making was not going to be used for anyone but myself. But I didn't really get up and go to work that day because of the guilt trip. I got up because I saw what she meant about my Saba. My Saba was someone who was quiet most of the time about his contributions. He didn't ask for a lot of things, and sometimes that meant that people, or at least I, didn't see all he did. But without needing the recognition, he still did so much for me and my family. He went to work every day. He drove me from Cherry Hill to Newark for a concert and then back. He always made sure to buy all his grandkids little toys and gum every time we saw him. He gave most of us our first phones and taught us how to use them. He did so much for us in all the quietest ways because he was committed to being a grandfather and to being there for his family. I didn't go to work because I felt guilty that he was committed to work and I was going to ditch. I got up because I wanted to be more like my Saba. I wanted to go into work, and even if I felt unappreciated or tired or over it, I wanted to keep going because I wanted to do things not just for myself or for the recognition, but because I said I would, and I wanted to do my best with everything I committed to, just like my Saba. So a couple of months ago, I had an assignment to choose someone important
somebody who doesn't have flashy costumes or anything, but it's really important in real life. So I chose my Saba because, sorry.
She was the most heroic person she could think of. Okay. Not all heroes are flashy and athletic. Some of the greatest heroes are heroic in a quiet, strong way. My Saba, Michael Fein, was an ordinary hero, and that he cares for others is very intelligent and especially strong-willed. My Saba has cared for his loved ones by showing compassion and working hard to make sure they are loved. He is also very smart and can teach me anything. I want to know about chemistry, patents, and so much more. He also inspired me by being resilient and determined role model. My Saba, Michael Fein, is a compassionate, bright, strong, ordinary hero.
My Saba cares deeply for everyone in my family. He takes time and effort to improve their lives and make them feel loved. One way my grandfather has cared for his loved ones is by taking care of his mother, my great-grandmother, for about 7 years. He brought her to shows, took care of her in his home, and was always there for her. Aside from taking care of his own mother, he also cared for my Buggy's parents, my mama and papa, for over 11 years. He lugged their heavy wheelchairs to plays, the beach, and even casinos, all to make them feel content. Once my Saba helped him into a pool with my Buggy, and my papa said, "I feel like a real person." My Saba also taught every single one of his grandchildren to ride a bike, taking almost the entire summer to teach us how to ride without crashing. He would promise little candies for every minute that we could ride. Along with my Buggy, he brings up his family together by starting and enforcing the tradition of renting a beach house every summer. Because of him, my Uncle Danny was inspired to build his own beach house for our family to enjoy. My Saba puts hard work into making his loved ones feel happy, important, and loved, a trait every hero should possess.
My Saba was also one of the most intelligent people I know. He graduated from Penn University with a degree in chemistry and got into Rutgers with a scholarship. Applying his degree, he went on to become a patent lawyer. He found ways to determine the unique attributes of a new invention and help the inventors get patent protection. Despite a brain tumor, he still recalled many people, memories, and places and facts owing to the many connections in his brain. For years, he has been the tech support of our family. Through his life, my Saba's intelligence has helped him to become an outstanding ordinary hero.
In addition to being caring and smart, a great hero must also be strong. My Saba definitely meets this requirement, as he has been battling cancer for over 2 years. However, this does not stop my grandfather from visiting his grandchildren, expose them to high culture such as museums and shows, and joining them at the beach. Apart from this, he endured the death of my Uncle Ricky, his son. Since their son was an eminent activist for Israel, my grandparents started a fund with the One Israel Fund, a charity that supports Jews living in Judea and Samaria. As a child living in Camden, New Jersey, my Saba had to conquer many obstacles to get to Penn, then Rutgers Law School, and then to where he is now, an amazing grandfather. My Saba is very resilient and determined ordinary hero. My Saba is everything a hero should be: caring, smart, and strong. Heroes are people that help educate and inspire others, and my Saba definitely meets those standards. My Saba teaches me that in order to be strong and smart, you do not need to stop being compassionate. I intend to follow in my Saba's footsteps, and I believe that if everyone did too, the world would be full of ordinary heroes like him.
So, I once heard a story in the family, and there's lots of them, about my mother-in-law, Dee Dee's Bubby, Sheena Esther, a very sweet and proper Yiddish mama, when she learned that Dee Dee was pregnant with Danny. At this point, Rick was 10, Lloyd was 6, and Allie was 4. And I was told that she turned and sternly looked at Mike and said, "You are not a gentleman." But if there was anything that my father-in-law Mike was, he was a true gentleman.
treated everyone the same, whether you were a judge or a convict. One great example of many was that he had so much patience for small children, sometimes too much. He, as you've heard many times, he taught all our kids how to ride bikes for hours and hours at the shore when he could have been relaxing, which he also enjoyed very much. And even when it looked hopeless, Naviva would be going down at a 45-degree angle, only not falling over because of her training wheels. He would continue, and he would even give them a jelly bean for every second that they were on the bike and not crashing. So it would be jelly bean, crash, and each time it would be successful, and it worked. And even Mo learned to ride a bike. And he was not a disciplinarian the way my parents were, which always perplexed me. In my family, screwing up meant you got punished. If you spilled milk, you sit in the corner. If you bit your nails, you got Tabasco sauce on your fingernails. For Mike, kids made mistakes, and they did things grown-ups would rather that they not do. Drawing on walls, running away from a playground, eating off the floor. He would not judge. I remember one time I was feeding Marguerite grapes, and she was in her high chair, and Dadla was there. He was trying to help, and he grabbed a whole bunch of grapes and plopped it right in front of Margie. And I gasped because I snatched them away, and I said, "That's dangerous." And I cut each grape into quarters because obviously almond grapes are a choking hazard, more dangerous than plutonium. And Mike gave me a look of just utter and complete disbelief, and he tolerated my ridiculousness. There's too many examples to name. As if I were a 2-year-old Shoshi running into the ocean. He was not big on telling people how to live their lives. And I remember on his 75th birthday, Lori and I got him an Apple Watch. And we knew he liked technology, and he seemed to like it. But the next Hanukkah, I got this little gift box from him. And inside, on a bed of cotton balls, was a watch that looked almost identical to the one Lori and I had given him. And I said, "Is this the watch we gave you?" And he said, no. And then when I tried to start it, it said Mike's watch. So later he did admit that it was the same watch. I think he did like it. But he was always telling him to stand and to walk around and to raise his arms and to stretch his back. And he said he already had enough people telling him what to do. He didn't need a watch. So I told Lori we should have gotten him a Porsche. But he was not overly concerned about kids getting hurt. It wasn't because he didn't care about them. It was because he knew they would get hurt no matter what you did. You could be standing next to them and they'll get hurt. And it was more important for them to be independent and to comfort them afterwards. And look, if things didn't work out. I really didn't get that at first. But then later on I figured, Danny and Rick came out okay, so give it a shot. So Izzy, you're welcome. I'm more excited with you. So I always say, one of the greatest things about my own dad's life was that he came from nothing and made it. He appreciated everything he had. He didn't have a new house or a new car or fancy clothes, but he was ecstatic to have the basics, and everything beyond that was just frosting on the cake. And anything bad was a temporary setback. And to the end, this is Michael talking about now, he was positive, as others have noted. Last thing, Lori noted to me that my father-in-law never wore glasses his whole life, which is incredible because he went to Penn and he went to law school and he was a Philadelphia lawyer. There's all that saying, smart as a Philadelphia lawyer. He worked on patents his whole practice, which is one of the toughest areas of law practice. I mean, so much so there's a separate bar exam for it. And all of that close reading for all of those literally decades and no glasses. And I just think that's emblematic of him, that no matter what happened in his life, he could still see clearly. And he knew what was important, and that was family and friends and enjoying the little things. Thank you.
I think I have to take this off because I won't be able to see otherwise. I'm just getting a little red. There's so many things I would say about my dad. He was, but I think really what everyone else has really reflected and what really shows about him is his incredible positivity about everything. He was really accomplished, and yet he was really humble. He didn't take it inside his own accomplishments and become arrogant. I never heard him express any regrets. I never heard him express any resentment. And like anyone, he had various times where people betrayed him or things didn't go his way. I never heard him say anything negative about it. He was always keeping his focus, like Marty said, in the distance, on the positive, on what really counted. And my mom always says, nishkefelach, no big deal, certainly she lives that as well, but I really feel like Dad had a way of making everyone around him feel like whatever he was doing on their behalf was really no big deal to him. Just in the last day or so, but always, I hear so many stories of favors that he did for people that he didn't think much of, didn't make mention of, and yet no one else would do that. He looked almost like any problem was something that he just wanted to solve. He wanted to take every problem and he took it upon himself as a challenge rather than something that was a burden or something that he was doing for someone for any other reason. It was just, hey, you need to drive, you need to be 3 hours away today? Well, I have a car, I can take you there, no problem. He took my kids, the kids wanted to go to a concert 3 hours from our home. He was like, okay, I'll take them. I'll pick them up. I'll take off work an hour early. I'll go. I'll get them. I'll pick them up. I'll take them 3 hours to the concert. I'll drive them back. And I'll wait at Dunkin' Donuts for 3 hours while they're in the concert. I mean, it was unbelievable the lengths that he would go to, and this was just all through his life. He would do that. He also, so many of the things he did in such a quiet and humble way that it was easy not to even notice. We all know how generous both of my parents are, and I'm sure many of you have had dramatic fist fights with my mom grabbing the check. My dad was not a check grabber. He was more of a slip the waitress the credit card before you even noticed the bill had come. And I don't know if I've ever gone out with my parents when they didn't treat everyone, no matter how many people were there, no matter what their relationship with them was. It was just something that he knew he had the power to do, and so he would just do it. He grew up poor, and we learned most about that from my mom, who would remind us of the deprivation he had, but he never mentioned it. He would only talk about the time he got the bike, not the times that he didn't get the bike, or the outfit that he did like, not the clothes that he had to wear that weren't to his taste. Just this morning, Eddie's brother Stevie wrote to me a story about how he would, for those who don't know, their family had 5 children, and my Nana, Dad's mom's little sister, died at age 40 from cancer, and my Nana really, adopted the children in her heart as her own. But Stevie said that my dad would get his hand-me-downs from Eddie, but he knew they were always coming from my dad, so he would check out my dad's clothes, and if he liked it, he would say, try not to ruin that one until he gets to me. And if he didn't like it, he's like, you could just fall in the mud, or, get rid of that one. So he also said that, even when they were kids, my dad was one of the only people who would make an effort to take him places, take him to Franklin Institute and go out with him and really treat him to things that were not just every day, that he wouldn't have had in his life otherwise. One of many things that he would do for people often would be things that you didn't realize you even needed. He would, very frequently when he would come to visit, he would not be there for, I mean, we'd be looking for him, and it turned out he would like go to Home Depot because he noticed that your picture wasn't hung right and you needed a certain nail for it, or this was loose and you needed to go get the right tool to fix it. He always set up for the kids their driving lessons, and on their birthdays they would know, he would call us a day or two ahead and say, hey, the lady's going to come and pick them up from school today and take them for a driving lesson. He, paid such attention to their interests and took such joy in any little thing that he could do for anyone, whether it was the kids, getting them toys every single time he saw them, some little thing. And, he realized it's not the big things, it's not the grand present that the kids really appreciate. It's the box, or it's the little toys that are trendy for 1 minute and then you throw them out the next. And he took such pleasure in always having something handy to get them. It's the only reason he got his coffee at McDonald's, actually. And he was generous also with his time and his effort. People were always in shock at the lengths that my parents, both of them, would go to attend anything on behalf of their grandchildren, whether it was taking those kids to that concert, whether it was driving 3 hours each way to see Noah play a high school football game, whether it was driving last year, it was just a year ago this weekend, that Aviva had directed a play in college, and even as ill as he was, he had spent the better part of the last 6 months in the hospital or in a recovery home. He insisted over everyone's objection that he had to go, he had to see her play, and he wanted to be there for her. And it was so meaningful that he had that insistence, as whatever his own personal discomfort was, he never mentioned. It was only a matter of wanting to be there with his family, be there for them. Learned a lot about how he was. A lot of my friends actually have been texting me the last day or so about what he did with their children. How he was, it didn't even matter if it was his own children, he was always there with people. Friends of ours had a baby that was very, very high strung, later turned out she was ADD and had excessive anxiety, and as a baby it really showed. And nobody could get this kid to sleep, and it was back when my parents were renting places and they visited, and the kid was just, always either talking or crying. Nobody could calm her down, and I said, let me try. It was a challenge for him. And he just started rocking her, and at the time they were renovating their kitchen, he's like, Puppy wants to know if she should get the white granite with the brown spots, or the brown granite with the white spots. She wants to know if she should get the dishwasher that has 7.2 liters or the one that has 7.4 liters. And he just kept going on all of the decisions. We were all cracking up, but meanwhile this baby went to sleep. The one thing he didn't like about babies is if they ever had a pacifier. If any of you ever had, or anyone at the park, or any stranger child ever had a pacifier, he would be like, oh, can I have that? And people would be like, why are you talking to my child? But he would make sure that the world was safe from pacifiers. There's just so much to say. When we were children, he always wanted, to help us, and it was always the simple, humble things that, were just pain in the neck jobs. I just remember him being up late with me. I was a procrastinator, and I finally had my handwritten draft of my, high school papers done at midnight, and I didn't know how to type yet, and he'd be like, it's okay, and he would just type it up, no problem, stay up late, didn't matter, you had to get up for work the next day. He just would do these thankless little jobs that made our lives so much better all the time. I feel, I was reading this weekend about Chayei Sarah and about how Rabbi Jonathan Sachs had passed away. And he had written something on Chayei Sarah that if you ensure that your children will continue to live for what you have lived for, then you can have faith that they will continue your journey and eventually will reach their destination. How the whole parsha of Chayei Sarah is about a good death and what it means for a good life. I think it's very emblematic of my dad that even though that it took cancer to fill him up with anything negative, and that even though his body was filled with all of this disease, even just last week, the brain cancer, which we thought was so serious, was gone. And that his brain and his mind was clear and filled only with healthy tissue and positive. And I think it's so emblematic of my dad's nature that even through his process of disease, that his mind stayed clear and his mind was always positive, really, till the last. And we'll take that positivity and that love and that devotion to family with us. And I miss Dad already. Love you so much. I feel like I must say thank you to Natalie, all of the people here, and I know people are watching, and so many friends and family are just so incredibly generous and helpful to our family. We really appreciate all of it, and especially Natalie, day to day, for this last year, has taken such unbelievable care of my dad physically and emotionally with her positive nature. I feel like it was very much meant to be that she came in the moment. I also have to say about my mom, I think a lot of people have seen their relationship was not always as calm as a lake. It was more like the ocean, which my dad really preferred. But to see her just meticulous attention to every element of his comfort, whether it was physical or emotional, the food, the entertainment, going out and getting him up and dressed and clean and fed, and every possible enjoyment in life, especially Fox News at top volume, that she just was relentless in making his life as incredibly positive as possible up until the very, very last minute. And I think it says something very special about my mom and about the way our family embodied my dad's positivity, that it took until literally the last hour of his life before literally an hour before he died, we finally had a conversation with a hospice nurse and made the decision that we should finally give up on the treatments and therapies and that we could accept hospice care. And literally 1 hour later, he passed away. So we kept that positive, energetic spirit up until the very end. Anyway, thank you. Love you, Dad.
We now hear from Bubby, from Mama, and my mother-in-law, Jean Fein.
Because I have a very quiet voice. People don't generally hear me. So I promise you I've been tested. I don't know what I could possibly say to add to what you've heard this morning from these remarkable children, and there's my children and my adopted children who are my in-law children who are remarkable, and we're so blessed to have them. And these grandchildren, her. If I weren't me, I'd be so jealous of me. I am so happy I'm me. Okay, well, there's 57 years to cover, so I better get started. Okay, I'm going to start at the beginning. I promise you I'm going to skip a couple of years. In 1963, I was at Temple University, a student, more or less actually, more playing guitar than being a student. And I was in a mixer at Minden Hall, and I was, a lot of people there, but it was exclusively for Temple kids, Temple students. And I had gone into the bathroom, and then there was a crowd in there, and then I came out, and I was standing in the hall. And as I was standing there with my friend, all of a sudden, bulking out of the bathroom was this guy. And I kind of looked at him, and he looked like a deer in the headlights. And I said, gosh, like, what a jerk. You're the ugliest girl I've ever seen coming out of the ladies' room. And he made a remark to me, and we started a conversation. And 57 years later, he's here. We were married within a year. Don't ask me why. We had I still can't figure it out. My parents didn't have money. My father was restarting his practice. They wanted to do a major big wedding, and we knew they didn't, so we eloped. What can I tell you? Which my parents did as well. We went to Elkton, Maryland, and we got married. Okay, and then we were married secretly for about 8 months. And then we were not so secret anymore because I got pregnant in Mazel Tov. And it was this handsome young man's father, Ricky, who had decided to be born before I finished college, which he was. Anyway, Mike had decided he was going to get into Temple. I'll make this kind of quick. He came with 2 of his friends who were Temple students. Ira Back and his cousin, Paul Shenza. They had Temple cards, they had Temple IDs. He didn't, he was going to Penn. So when he came to the door, he didn't know enough to get fake IDs. I mean, he wasn't very sophisticated. Every other kid in the world had fake IDs, not Mike. But they told him he couldn't come in, so here he is stuck on Broad Street at night by himself. And he decided, no way am I staying here. So he searched around the building, saw an open window. It was near a tree, climbed up a tree into the bathroom, and found himself in the ladies' room, and that's how it all happened. From the beginning, he was a very resourceful, creative person. Anyway, okay. So that's how we met. Very romantic. Okay, he was creative and determined, and that's how we got into that bathroom. Okay. Okay, this is still about the bathroom here. I keep going. Let's see. Okay, right. Oh my God, I really went on about this thing. Now, his creative and inventive mind helped make him the outstanding patent attorney he was. Okay, we're getting serious. He could figure out any kind of invention, chemical, mechanical, electrical, or technologically. I can't even say it, and he did. Most patent attorneys, they have to have either a chemical or an engineering background. Mike was graduated as a majored in chemistry. He was a chemist when he graduated from Penn. So technically he was supposed to be a chemical patent attorney. However, he was so talented and so really brilliant that he was able to figure anything out. when he worked at the patent office, he would come home working on inventions of toilets. How not to make any noise, how, when you go to the toilet, how do you flush it, you know, and keep it quiet, and all these kinds of crazy things. Another invention that he was working on were methods of delivery of babies. And there was one thing he brought home, which was a table that spun around, and eventually the centrifugal force brought the baby out. So these were things that Mike was involved with at his first year, and thank goodness he never imposed that on me during my childhood, even though it was really a very good idea and nature helped. So these are the kinds of things we did. We lived in Washington for 2 years. We loved living in Washington, but it was not the place for us. It was very transient, a lot of political changes, a lot of military changes, and also it was away from our parents. And it was very important for us to get back to the Philadelphia, South Jersey area to be with them. So we moved back to Broomall, and after we had our second child, my beautiful Lori, and she was a few months old, and we moved back to Broomall in an apartment. Soon the apartment became too small because, mazel tov, I was pregnant with Allie. One thing we never could quite figure out was birth control. So he wasn't very mechanical about that. So in a hurry, we had our 4 children. Okay, so, I'm looking at the wrong thing here. Okay, so now, our parents, okay, Mike. Okay. Well, this is just a little side thing that going back a little bit. When my buddy met Mike came out to the house after that romantic meeting at Temple, and everybody fell in love with him. He was like the dream of every parent, which of course was a little bit of my nightmare. I think so much, there must be something wrong with this guy. My bubby saw him, and she lived with us for 35 years, and she is the love of my life. And she said to me, Didele, he's a gittin neshama. And I said, Bubby, he's not such a gittin, he's not so good in the winter, he's a gittin neshama. This was my joke with Bubby. But she knew right away, Bubby was a great judge of character. She knew a kusik from a rabbi, like that. She was just smart. And she was able to figure it out. And my parents adored him. So even though we got married in a kind of circuitous way, and it wasn't, the way you dream of your children getting married, they did it, they went away, they ran off to Elton, and they did it, so they didn't have much to say about it. And afterwards we had the Jewish wedding with a very Orthodox rabbi, and it was official. Anyway, our children, what made Mike happiest, as you've heard, was our children, and particularly our grandchildren. This is what prompted him to drive 7 hours every week, never to miss Noah playing football as captain of his high school team, and insist that we drive to Boston on the weekend that Aviva, who is not here, she has a good excuse, she's in Israel, was directing a play up at Harvard where she's supposed to be going into her 3rd year. Thank God chose much better place to be, Israel, and to see her play, and that was mentioned as well. And it was a highlight. It was also the only time he spent a night in a hotel, not a hospital, and not in his hospital bed at home or at Powerback in the 2.5 years that he was sick. We went there and enjoyed every minute of it, her directing her 2nd play at Harvard, Vegas Mirror. He saw Sammy's hockey games. Whether he played or not, we watched the entire hockey game. We went to we saw them in yeshiva. We would drive up to New York where Sammy was at the yeshiva, and still is. We saw our granddaughter, Shoshana, who was the captain of her volleyball team. And they played a game at one of the schools, one of the yeshivas in Riverside. And they won. This is very impressive. I hope you're not jealous. They won the award as the champions of the Religious Girls Volleyball League. Pretty darn impressive, yes. And let me tell you, I have never seen a more competitive game in my life. They would kill each other to get that ball. It was remarkable. Gave me new respect for religious girls' ability to play volleyball. Danny being the last kid and having these three beautiful children, but there was another grandmother on the scene, and they had lots of help, and they were not as needy as our other children, unfortunately or fortunately. We could not get our hands on these kids. And as much as we wanted to, they always had help. They always didn't need it, and they didn't go away without the kids. They would go away and hire somebody to stay with the kids so they would have their freedom. For some reason, they decided they're going to go away, and for some insane reason, they decided to pick us to babysit their three kids. This was about 2 years ago. So this was like our ship had come in. We were finally going to get our hands on these three kids. We went to their house. We stayed at their house. They had 1 million people coming and going, and a housekeeper, and making sure they had plans and play dates at the zoo, which sometimes we did and sometimes we didn't. And we had so many remarkable experiences. We took them to the mall. We took them to see, do you remember the movie, kids? What was it? The Greatest Showman, which I thought, I don't know if that's going to work out so well. They loved it. We had the best time. We had the most wonderful time, and we really got connected with them. And not once did any of them make a fuss or cry or do anything but be the perfect children. The only thing, one time, Jack had some friends over, and he had a, what was the name of it? What was it? It was Adam Sandler singing a song about a car, in which he described his car using the S word. And I immediately heard this and went, grabbed it, and turned up and said, "You don't listen to that tape. That's the only thing." And that was his friend that did it, right, Jack? He's such an honest kid. Okay. Anyway, we had a remarkable time. Unfortunately, Julie broke her leg on the trip the second day, but they never told us. She came in on crutches, and so we owe you another time. Well, I do. Okay. Okay. One of the things, there's so many things, other amazing experience we shared with them, with Mike, but particularly proud of the fact that he taught all the children how to ride a bike. I know you've heard this many times. And what he did out of love, but there was also a selfish reason. Mike wanted to get the kids away from the parents and me. And he wanted to get them to himself, for himself, because he wanted to do stuff with them that we would say, no, don't give them that third candy bar. You know, they already had a shake. They don't need an ice cream. He didn't want to hear it. So he would take them away, take them to Playcade. I think it's Playcade, is that it? And give them enough money that you could take them to Disney World to play the Pokerino and pinball games. They would get these little coupons, which Sammy saved them. A very frugal guy. 2 years this kid saved these little coupons because he was saving for something. What was it, Sammy? Do you remember? An iPhone. An iPod. Who gets an iPod at Playcade? They have all these prizes up there that nobody ever gets because they don't even have them. He finally got enough coupons. They had to make good. We had to go down there. They had to order it. And we had to make a special trip to Atlantic City to get it for him because no one ever saved that many tickets to get anything other than a Slinky or a whistle. Sammy got an iPod. Anyway, they would ride their bikes down there, stop at Wawa or someplace and get anything they wanted, or on the boardwalk, and then come back, and he would have the thrill of his life. And then, of course, he would take them in the ocean because where Mike loved to be was the ocean. He was the oldest man I know that actually jumped waves and dove in no matter what the conditions were, how many jellyfish, how cold it was, didn't matter, he loved it. Okay. Now, okay, he would indulge them their parents might say no. All right, you got that. Okay, almost done, almost done. Okay. One of the things, when doctors asked Mike what his goals were during the last 2 years when he got well, he would invariably say, I want to ride a bike on the boardwalk with my grandchildren. That was his idea of heaven. Not a Maserati, not a Lamborghini, his bicycle with his grandchildren. That's what he wanted to do. As remarkable as the bar and bat mitzvahs were, and the play recitals and the Hazamir concerts and all the things that our extraordinary grandchildren do, God bless them all. This was the thing that he was the most excited about doing. He also, one of the things he liked to do is break the law. In not a terrible way, but in a mild way. All of these children passed their driver's tests because by the time they took them, they already knew how to drive. Because Mike took them out against my wishes and their parents when they were 13 and 14 to drive at Cherry Hill East parking lot to teach them how to drive. So they were all very proficient drivers at 13 and a half, as long as the parents didn't find out about it. But that was one of the things he did. He would probably lose his law license, but we don't worry about that now. And the other thing he loved to do was to make them happy. Anytime Noah came to town, the first thing we did was get him a hoagie, whether it was South Philly or White House if we were going to the shore. Noah wanted a hoagie. It was midnight. We get him a hoagie. You can see it didn't harm him any. Noah's a pretty handsome guy. Anything that they wanted to do, FaceTime with the kids in Israel he loved, or jumping the waves. Another remarkable blessing that I must talk about with our concerning Mike. Mike was a very kind of a quiet, laid-back sort of a guy. He never cursed. He was very much a gentleman in some ways, I must say. And he was not a flamboyant guy. Sometimes ties were too loud for him. And yet, we gathered up a group of friends, and as my parents were my role models for making insane parties, we made insane parties. Some of you were at these insane parties. And the parties included getting dressed up in costumes, looking ridiculous and horrible, as somebody said, trashing my house. And we had parties over the years that were very, very well known in the community. For one thing, I always had to invite my neighbors because we trashed the house and they would call the police. We had cars on the lawn. We had clotheslines on the outside in Cherry Hill with my underwear hanging. That was the Camden party. We had the Portes party where we served a meal in the basement because we didn't want anyone sitting on our furniture upstairs covered with sheets, and charging for the little rye bread and weighing the amount of corned beef you could have. We knew how to do Portes great. We were really good at that. We had these parties and we had so much laughter, and our friends went all out Judy and Len, of course, they didn't go all out, but we had the shtetl party. I dressed up as the butcher's wife, and I got an authentic bloody apron from Agnes, the kosher butcher, and blacked out my teeth. And people asked me, is that you or is that a pillow? Because I said, it's a pillow, of course, because I had a stomach like this and an apron. And Mike dressed up like the butcher. And Judy and Len came in. Everybody else was a Hasidic Jew. You know, we had we had a natural Hasidic Jew in the room, Rabbi Sarah Bransky, before Mendy's time. And Judy and Len come in as the Tsar and the Tsarina. And we had pictures of the Tsar with an X through it, looking so elegant that they could have played it in a movie. I never forgave you for that. Never. Just want you to know. They looked absolutely stunning. But we had the most wonderful times. We laughed. And one of the times that I'm very grateful for, we had some people in our lives who were extraordinary people. They were a Holocaust couple, Sam and Esther Kajowski. Some of you know them. Sam and Esther loved to have a good time. Sam lost 16 members of his family. It makes you want to have a good time. Yeah. Esther was the sweetest, kindest bubby you ever met in your life. We adored them. We invited them to a party. It was a party where Nelson Berman had a prop. I'm not even going to say what it was. They were sitting on the floor, and Nelson was dressed up in a Speedo and a jacket with a tie and no shirt. Nelson, God bless him. And had something also revealing from the Speedo. Esther and Sam laughed. I have never heard them laugh like this. And ironically, yesterday I was at the cemetery. We were changing plots because we decided we had plots at Montefiore, but we wanted to be at Crescent to be near Ricky. And we had to go, and thank goodness, we ordered the plot exactly 24 hours ago. And we went out to see where they were. We wanted it to be near Ricky. And we had several choices, so we went there. And if those of you who come with us will see where it is. And before you get to Ricky's grave, on the outside of it, maybe 12 feet away, are Sam and Esther Kajowski. They are buried right there. And the fact that they're there, and Ricky, who was the funniest guy in the world, is making them laugh, gives me joy. So I want to say to Mike, and I must say also, and I wrote it down on the side, I didn't turn it over. We never had any hard liquor at the parties. People always thought, what are you drinking? Iced tea and Coke. The things that we did, the Schnorrs and the Schlepper party. Mike never went to camp. We had a party down the shore for his birthday. We rented the JCC and we made it camp. We had color war. And I made up t-shirts, and there were two teams, the Schnorrs and the Schleppers. And we all wore t-shirts, and we had two judges to judge which team. Mike was on the Schnorrs, which was appropriate. And we had two judges, Judy Wismer and Josh, but they were corrupt. They got an extra hot dog because they always voted that Mike's team won. So we did the right thing. We did right by him. So those are some of the highlights of our life. And Mike, who is very conservative, would wear a white vest in our Puerto Rican party with chains. And we had a Puerto Rican band from Camden, and it took guts because he thought they might kill him. And he would dress up as the butcher when we had favorite couples party. He was Howard Stern with the wig, and I was Dolly Parton with several other augmentations. And we just had fun. He never was too stiff or conservative or too much of a lawyer or a chemist to not make himself look ridiculous. And we are blessed enough to live in Cherry Hill. We have the most wonderful friends. We have the most wonderful rabbi. and his gorgeous mishpacha, and his beautiful wife, who I corrupt by taking them to shows every 20 years. And I'm taking you to another one because here comes Lion King again. Yes, I'm going, you're going. And that's it. And we have this amazing rabbi who I spoke to for 45 minutes last night, he's my rabbi, but he's not my rabbi. He is Alan Moe's and Lori Marty's rabbi. Rabbi Semeku came all the way down from Teaneck, who is the wisest, most brilliant, other than my Mendy, of course, rabbi, and Avram, if he's listening. Amazing rabbi who inspires me every time we're up there for Yom Tov. And thank you, you're an unbelievable person. And all of you, my cousin Marlene who came, who loved Mike, who Mike helped so much to find a place to live when she had to move out of her place, to get her Social Security, to do things for her, which he didn't even tell me half the things. And finally, but certainly not, last but not least, my wonderful Natalie. Allie found her for me online. She brought her into Powerback where Mike was staying. She said, Mom, I want you to meet her. I said, well, is she an aide? Is she skilled? She said, no, she's not skilled. So I just have a feeling about her that she will become skilled and that she would be a good choice. She wants to live in. I said, Allie, I don't want to live in. She says, Mom, you're going to need it. Mike was in much better shape at that point. Allie, in her infinite wisdom, where is Allie? I thought she left. Yes. Okay. Allie said, Mom, you're going to need it. Hire Natalie. One of the best things I ever did in my life was hire Natalie. She's a live-in. She wants to live in. We love that she does that. She spared me hours of caring for Mike at his worst, bathing him and putting gauze on him, treating his horrible wounds from lymphedema and skin cancer, among other things, and rectal cancer. And she did it with love and humor. I would come into that room and the two of them would be laughing. I said, what have you got to laugh about? And she would make him laugh. Dancing with him, holding his hand. I'm a little jealous because she has more photos with him than I have. And he loved her and she loved him, and I love her for her devotion to him. There are no words that I can say to tell you what Natalie has meant to him. And she has come, she knows about Shabbos dinner, she gets the wine, she gets we don't wine, we have grape juice, the cups, the challah, she warms it up, she knows the prayers, she's remarkable. From Guyana, anybody you get to work for, you get them from Guyana. She used to work in a gold mine, had to take a plane there, and she was a cook for 100 men in a gold mine. So I figured, she could cook for me, I guess, right? Anyway, I thank you all. Eddie, who is the most devoted person in the family, and Cindy, and Murray, I'm so glad to see you. I love you. Every one of you, Marlene, my first cousin who I grew up with and we were so close, and all of you, Judy and Linda, not that many I can say, Howard Saul, the most remarkable human being, a doctor, brilliant doctor, and the most wonderful friend. He sat us down the day Mike died. He saw him in the morning. I knew he was bad. And Howard said, he's dying. And it was a shock. He said, he's in a transitional period. It might be weeks, it could be days, it could be hours. He says, you have to prepare yourself and let him go. And you have to understand when he says things that are irrational, like he said, I'm going to sell Nana's house, Nana's condo, which we sold 10 years ago. He said, it's not irrational. He is in a different place. He's transitioning, where there's no time, there's no space, there's nobody missing. And he is sincere. He's not senile. And he explained things to us in a way that gave us such comfort that when it happened that night, I felt that I could be at peace because he was at peace. That's what Howard Saul does for you. He also got Mike to the Passover Seder when he was at Powerback. They wouldn't let him out because the only way you can come out to go, no matter what it is, a Passover Seder is not an exclusion, is if you see a doctor. Howard said, I'm coming over tonight. I'm a doctor. What am I, chopped liver? I'm a doctor. I'll bring my stethoscope. You tell him, I give him a card for the doctor's appointment, and it was a director of Powerback who knew Howard, religious man at Chabad, and the two of them cooked up this scam. We got Mike out. Howard gave him a quick exam, and he came to our Passover Seder. The people, Renee, my daughter, all of you wonderful people. I don't know who you are. Avram. Oh my, you're one of my favorite rabbis too, Avram. You know that is definitely, oh God bless you. And this is a friend from Tina. How wonderful you all are. My beautiful children, and Tehillah, the most brilliant, gorgeous, articulate human being. I want her as my sister-in-law, my daughter-in-law, my daughter, whatever. She's mine. I got her. Exquisite, inspired me to lose 17 pounds. Yes, that's why I'm so skinny, everybody. Don't worry about me, I'm okay. Thank you. Thank you, all you people listening. Thank you for letting me go on and on and on. I could not cut it short. This is cutting it short, actually. And the speeches my children and my in-law children had to say, I cannot distinguish between my in-law children and my children because they are so remarkable. They are so devoted. Excuse me. I'm just forgetting just one little minor person here. My Moshe, who is the gift that Allie gave this family. The whole family benefits and is so blessed to have somebody like Moshe in our family. His devotion to not only us, to Noah, to Ricky, to Dad, to everyone he knows he's devoted to. I am blessed with the most remarkable people in the world as part of my life. And how can I ever feel cheated when I have this in my life? So thank you, Mike. Have a good trip. Say hello to everyone. You'll be right next to Ricky. And I'll join you soon. Not soon, in 120 years. Not soon. Don't wait for me. Eat dinner. Don't wait for me. I'm always late. And this, I give you, I love you all, and I'm done. Thank you so much. Oh, wait, we're having Shiva, believe it or not, for 7 days. How do you like that for something unusual? We have Danny rented a circus tent in our backyard. You can have elephants and horses in this tent with tables covered. Please come and eat this food that Robin, Sue, where are you? They haven't leave. They're outside. That they ordered. I mean, please come all week. When is the? We're not doing the service yet. No one has. They're not done with this. Oh, okay. Okay. Now back to our sponsor.
We're almost concluding the service. There's a couple of things. We're going to first do a Kil Mali. We're going to make a prayer. If I can ask everyone to rise. Kil Mali Rachamim Shochem V'Amromim Hamsei Menucha B'Chol Tachas Kanfei Shechina B'Malo Kedosh B'Tor Gezor Rakiyah Mas'irim es nishmas Abi B'chubach B'yichetzko B'shalach B'olamo B'avur Shebli neder not B'mispalim Baratz Gras Nishmaso B'gan Eden Tei Menuchaso B'chaim Ala Rachamim Yasirenu B'seisik B'pali Alamim V'yitzur B'surchan es Nishmaso Adonai Nachaso, Yadok B'Shalom B'Shkaval, V'Nomar Amen. Before we conclude the service, there's a Kaddish that we say, normally said at the cemetery. I'm not sure, we have a minion here, I'm not sure if I'm going to have a minion at the cemetery, obviously understanding all the COVID and people coming or not coming. When they give this down, we're going to have the family
say the Kaddish prayer now. It's a little bit different than the regular Kaddish. I have it printed. So hold on a second here. Nonetheless, this one is in transliteration. We'll all say it together. Yisgadal v'yisgadash shmei rabah v'yamah duhu asi le'ischadita u'lachaya me'kisasa u'lasaka l'chaye oma u'levnei karta Jerusalem u'l'shachlel heichale v'gava u'l'mekar pulchana nuchra'a me'ar'a u'l'asava pulchana Dishmaya la'asra, v'yamlich kudsha b'rechu, v'malchuse v'kare, v'chayechon, u'v'yomechon, u'v'chaye v'chol beis Yisrael, v'agala, u'bizman kariv b'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabah v'barach v'olam omei omaya. Yisbarach v'yishtabach V'yisbar, v'yisramam, v'yisnaseh, v'yisadar, v'yisaleh, v'yisalal, shmei v'kudsha b'rechu. Le'ela min kol berchasa v'shirasa, tushbechasa v'nechamasa, da'amiram v'alma v'imru, amen. Yehi shalom arava min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'alkol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'Ramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'imru, amen. This will conclude the service for Rechel Baruch Ben Yechezkel Ber. We will ask the family to first walk out and everyone else to follow them. Well, first Dadeline, then the rest of us, please. The funeral will be at Crescent Cemetery in Pentagon, and then as my and then as my mother-in-law said, the shiva will be at the house till Tuesday morning. 1040 Bob White Drive, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. At 9, we're going to have a Mara Binyan at 7 p.m. No, I have no glasses. Thank you all for those that have been watching. Thank you all that came. Is it raining?
I don't think it started yet. Oh, it's drizzling now.
Do we have the... Thank you so much.